Welcome to Headlines. My name is Benyomin Goldschmidt, and I'm looking forward to hosting this show with you today. So I'd like to thank Rabbi Dovid for this wonderful achsanya, this digital achsanya. It's a virtual pulpit. I think this is the closest I'll ever get to giving a shir klali in the pun of his yeshiva. You know, if a Rav were to get an offer by a Make-A-Wish Foundation to choose something, I think it would be this. This would be his choice to host this wonderful show. So thank you, Rabbi Dovid, again. I'd like to dedicate this podcast in memory of my first cousin, Reb Chaim Dovi, ben Rav Ben Sion Shalom, who passed away at the age of 26. He left behind his wife Miriam and his daughter Et, who was only 2 years old. Maybe Meir and the Ganze Mishpacha. And the truth is, sitting at the Levaya this past Sunday, it was mamish. It was a Musar Sefer just to listen to the Speidim of all the family members who've been with him for 2 years. That he was mamish mizdakich b'isurim. And his father's hesped, he included so many points that showed what a wonderful human being he was.
Dovi Brody was really a prince of a man. He was someone who had impact on every single person he came across. In the Beis Medrash, playing basketball in camp, and even during the last 2 years when he was in the hospitals, he had impact on the medical staff that took care of him.
And I think really a look into his life, it's really what I want to talk about today. How are you mekar of other people? How do you bring other people closer to really what we believe is the samachayim, is the purpose of our life, the meaning of our existence? And the truth is, it's by literally exemplifying what Torah is all about, is living the values that we preach. And I think that the Gemara in Yuma Peivav that discusses what's a chil Hashem, a kiddush Hashem, at the end of the day, Maha Briyos Omer Solov, is Shem Shamayim Mis'ayev Al Yatcha. Do people look at you and say, in Ashrei Aviv Shalim Do Torah, Ashrei Rabbi Shalim Do Torah? Do people look at you and say, wow, look what a Ben Torah looks like. Look what a Jewish person who's the Shemer Torah Mitzvahs looks like. At the end of the day, that is Kiddush Hashem. At the end of the day, it's how are we Megadel Mekadesh Shem Shamayim. And how do we glorify and sanctify God's name? Do people look at us and say, listen, there's something divine in human beings. There is an neshama. There's something deeper to humanity than just existence alone. And, I don't like, to quote from Umay Sa'ilam, Bill Clinton said that the world is more impressed by the power of our example than by the example of our power. Now, I'm not sure in the relations to American foreign policy, but when it comes to being mashpia on others, there's no question that there's nothing more powerful than personal example. You know, when Rav Ovadia Yosef was nifter, the Rishon LeZion, the Pesach Hadar, close to 1 million people came to his funeral. It was the single biggest event in the history of the state of Israel. There was no bigger event, no rock concert filled up more spaces than the funeral of Rav Ovadia Yosef. So the whole country is shut down because you have close to 1 million people who are, giving the kavod achron to Rav Ovadia Yosef. And all the TV stations and the journalists are trying to discuss and speak, what was so special about Rav Ovadia Yosef? It's always what's the perception of the outside world on the incredible accomplishments of Rav Ovadia. And they interviewed the late Shimon Peres, the president of Israel, who was very close to Rav Ovadia. And he actually learned with him Chavrusa. I don't know if Rav Ovadia came late to the Chavrusa tumult, so he got stuck with Shimon Peres. But at the end of the day, they asked him, what's so special about him? And Shimon Peres said that when you're in the presence of a great man, you know it. When you're in the presence of a great man, you know it. And a true Ben Aliyah, any man or woman who lives by the values that we preach, at the end of the day is going to be able to make an impression on people around him. I thought there's a Gemara in Ksuvas Yud Zayin, Amar Aleph, about Rebavo, when he would come from the academy, he would come from the Beis Medrash to the house of the emperor. Nafkwam hasa the Bekeser la'ape, the maidservants of the emperor's house would go out to greet him. And this is what they sang to him. Mashran lehache, Rabbi de Ameu, Madbrana de Umse, Butzina de Nahira, Brich Mesaich L'Shalem. master of his people, leader of his nation, candle of illumination. Blessed is your arrival in peace. You could ask a question, what do the maidservants know about Rabbi? Did they learn with him a Rashba? Did they listen to his shiurim? Did they mamish chapana from his divrei Torah? At the end of the day, if you're a gadol b'Torah, at the end of the day, if you follow what Hashem wants you to do, everyone are going to notice it. This is not something you're going to be able to keep a secret. Even the maidservants in the house of the emperor are going to say, you're a butzina d'nahira, you're a candle of illumination. So a little bit about myself. My name is Benyomin Goldschmidt, and I was born to a family that devoted its life to spreading Torah. My father, Rav Pinchas Goldschmidt, is the chief rabbi of Moscow and the president of the Conference of European Rabbis. My mother founded the Eitz Chaim Day School in Moscow. They moved to Moscow in 1989, and I grew up in Russia. I spoke English at home. I was born in Israel. I grew up in Moscow. Then at the age of, right before my bar mitzvah, I went to learn in Eretz Yisrael. They used to joke that, in Lita, when kids would leave the shtetl, the parents would wish them twice a mazel tov. One mazel tov was for their bar mitzvah. Another mazel tov was for their wedding. Baruch Hashem, I saw my parents after I left, but I was zeicha to be in Eretz Yisrael for many years, and then I came to the States. And now I serve as an assistant rabbi in a wonderful community in Manhattan's Upper East Side. It's called Parky Synagogue, Zichron Ephraim. And if you're ever in Manhattan for Shabbos, you're welcome to come here. It's a great kiddush. It's really a great experience. Great rabbanim, great chazanim, a great kehillah. And I'm privileged to be able to serve here as an assistant rabbi. And when we speak about Kiruv, it's important to know that there are many different aspects that we need to understand. Kiruv is something that evolves. Kiruv is something that changes. And you have to adapt with the times and how to do Kiruv. In the beginning of the 90s in Moscow, they said you could be Mekar Vayid by giving him just a warm bowl of soup. People had nothing. People were thirsty. And just by offering anything, or offering a framework where people could come and learn Torah, people would do that. But that changed over time, and as people progressed and they succeeded economically, and Russia came out from the ruins of the perestroika, you had to readjust the whole industry of outreach. If people used to like coming to schools that were for free, now people, if it was for free, they suspected it wasn't a good school. So at the end of the day, you have to adopt outreach to the times you serve in. And I would like to discuss some of the questions and some of the aspects in which, in the framework of how we do Kiruv today. We have three very special guests, three very different perspectives. We have with us the chief rabbi of Israel, Harav Dovid Baruch, who's actually the youngest person to ever be elected as chief rabbi of Israel at the age of 47, since Rav Kook founded the chief rabbinate in 1921. And Rav Dovid Lau, who's also serving as the Nasi of the Best in Rabbani Agadol today in Yerushalayim, will discuss with us of some of the shilas that come up in Kiruv. You actually, you have to become a Pesach in B'di'evitz. How do you measure the chumras of an Isser? What's more chumr, what's less chumr, if you're in a situation that neither is ideal? Someone told me about a conversation of someone asked Rav Yashiv that he could have impact on someone not to marry out. Should he do it? So what's the shayla? Of course he should do it. So he asked him, technically speaking, if he marries out, maybe it's a latest chatan bum, it's one lav, but if he lives, if he marries Jewish and he doesn't keep Tarsa Mishpacha, he could have many, many more Isurim. So technically speaking, maybe perhaps it's not as bad. Rav Yashiv told him it's pasha to bar blishum safek klal that that keeping someone within marrying Jewish have the utmost importance, because at the end of the day you could cut yourself off by this decision from the Jewish people, from the nitzchis of Klal Yisrael. So the question is, in order to avoid intermarriage, how far do we go? How much effort do we put into it? Another shayla, if someone comes and asks you, for example, he says, listen, I'm going to make an event that's not going to be kosher. I'm going to make a wedding or a reception. Should I have non-kosher meat or should I have chazer? So, technically speaking, if you have a kosher animal that's treif, you could have an isser of basar b'chalav, you could have isser of chaylev, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but essentially, how do you measure Isurim? And are they always measured just by the amounts of lavim, or there are other reasonings behind it as well? This is an open-ended question, and I'd like to hear responses from your perspective as well. Then, no conversation about Kiruv is good without doing client research. What do the people who are Maskarav telling us? What brought them closer? So I think it's an important conversation. What makes people become frum? What makes successful people who have a life and and are good people and living productive good lives? What makes them come close to Yiddishkeit? So we have with us Sivan Rahav Meir today, who is actually one of the most famous TV anchors. She was voted in as the most popular media personality in Israel. And I had to hop her right before she got into the late night show to discuss the charges against the Prime Minister of Israel yesterday. And she devoted some of her time to speak to us of what made her frum. At the end of the day, what brings people closer to Yiddishkeit? Is it emotional or is it intellectual? And actually, she's a very big marbitz Torah today, so we'll have an opportunity to speak with her as well. In addition, we're speaking to Dovi Scheiner. Rabbi Dovi Scheiner is the founder of the Soho Synagogue, which was the hip synagogue downtown. Got enormous amounts of people to engage in his programming, and we're going to debate with him perhaps what are the limits of what's appropriate for outreach purposes. How far do we go in terms of what's an atmosphere in the room? How is a shul supposed to look like? And this is also a conversation that is ongoing, and this is a conversation that should and will be held for many, many more years. So for the riddle of the week, here's our following question. Chazal say that the whole Shivas Yimei Miluyim, when the Mishkan was put together, he would put it up and break it down. And the eighth day, he put it up and was not mefarik it back. And therefore it says, that at the end of the Yimei Miluyim, that's when Moshe really put the Mishkan together. So obviously, if it was 8 days, that obviously included a Shabbos. The question is that in the beginning of this week's parsha, Sheishis Yamim Ta'aseh Melachu V'Yom Hashvi Yeh Lechem Kodesh Shabbos Shabboson Ladonai Kol Ha'osek Bo Melacha Yumos. And Rashi says, why is the Makdem Azar Shabbos to the tzivui of the building of the Mishkan? Lomar She'enoi Doiches Shabbos. So how in the world were they able? It's a big tema. How could they be making the Mishkan and Shabbos? It's Asr M'Shem Oyel. And if ain't being in the Mikdash Doiches Shabbos, it was forbidden to do so. Please let us know your answers. We have on the phone with us the Rav Harashi L'Yisrael, the Chief Rabbi of Israel, the Nasi of the Beis Din Rabbani Agadol, the head of the High Rabbinical Court of Israel, where Rav Yashiv and Rav Ovadia Yosef used to be members of the Beis Din. Harav Harashi of Rav Lau, Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom.
We wanted to ask you today a few questions, especially regarding outreach and Kiruv. And the first question is, when someone comes and wants to learn Torah, what is the best way to approach? What's best to start learning together with them?
It depends on the people. I can't tell you exactly the way because everyone with his head. If you are speaking about someone that his way is to think and to check something, and he do things according to his head, this is a way, of course, for him to learn Gemara, to learn with him, and to take him into the deep of our Torah. But before that, you need to speak with someone to understand that we believe that we have Hashem, that we are one of the very big chair, that began with Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Rachel and Leah, and what you can ask him what you are doing, not that you are proud about your parents and your forefathers. What you are doing about that your grandchildren can be proud about you, that you continue the way of your tradition, of your Judaism. This is a way to everyone. But if someone is the man or woman that like to think and to learn, of course, that Gemara, deep Gemara, is very good for him.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Lau. And if I could expand a little bit on the question, I was a child that grew up in Moscow. And the day school I went to, the Jewish day school, it was a majority of kids who obviously came from completely secular homes. And it was a state school, so we had to teach the state curriculum, secular curriculum. And the parents didn't want the school day to be too long. And there was a debate whether to have, if you have 1 hour to be with the kids, should it be tefillah or should it be chagim and masoret and chumash? What's more important? If you're speaking about chinuch and you want to leave an impression on a child who doesn't have another Jewish education, what should have the emphasis? What's more important?
I think that tefillah is very important. Tefillah, this is a way that around the tefillah you can explain about emunah, about trust in a God. You can explain about you have opportunity to speak with God, with Hashem, and this is a way that you can speak to His heart, and this is a way that I think 1 hour you need to prefer to this way. I think so.
Wow. More important than learning Torah is to do Moda'ani, Shema Yisrael, and Shmona Esrei.
Yes, this is a way, of course, for children. If you are speaking about children, you need to speak to their heart, to speak and to give them the opportunities of feeling the tradition, of feeling the Judaism, and this is something that can stay with them. You know, the Rabbi of Warsaw, Chief Rabbi of Warsaw, Rabbi Shudrich, asked me a few years ago that he have opportunities to meet a lot of thousands of teenage or students, Jewish, around the days of the Holocaust, around the Mitzad HaChaim, the
March of the Living.
March of the Living. This is for him the 1 week that thousands he meet. And he asked me, what is the important to speak with them? And I told him, please remember 2 words and tell it again and again and repeat it again and again. Jewish marriage, marriage Jewish, Jewish marriage, marriage Jewish. Because after a few years, they can't remember exactly the emotions and the feelings that they felt in those days. But if you give them this message and they remember, and when they have a question about it, that can help to remind themselves the emotions of this week, and this is a way to remember and to feel it and to help them for their future, Jewish marriage.
So that's a very important point I want to ask you about. Putting the intermarriage and obviously the importance of stressing to marry a Yid, to marry a Jewish person. I want to ask you, we have kulas, we have Mishum Hefsed Merube Hikilu, we have a Terim L'Tzorech Chole, we have Mishum Megune Hikilu Barabanan. Is there a new kulos, Mishum Kiruv Rechokim Hikilu Barabanan? What kulas could we do for Kiruv Rechokim?
You ask me a question that I need to write a book to give you answer. This is a very big question. It depends of things. for example, if you ask about you want to invite people to Sudat Shabbos meal, and of course that you need to give them all the options to stay for all the Shabbat in your home. But if
you live in Manhattan, you can't. You don't have an extra place, and you just meet a person. If you invite them to come to your home for a Shabbos, they'll think you're crazy. They're going to run to the other direction.
Yes, they think that you're crazy, but you give them all the options. But you know that they chose to take their way back to their home by car. But if you give them the options to stay with you, yes, they can think that you're crazy, but you did it. You give them the options, and this is a cool, of course, because I know that I close my eyes. I know that they'll come by their car, but if I give them the option, this is the way that you can take a coolness about this, and of course that. If you are speaking about a lot of things, everything you need to check it, and this is the way. You know, everyone is in here a ladder from the earth to heaven, and everyone in his place in the ladder between Hashem to him. I can't tell you one kule for all the people because a lot of stairs in the ladder. Because of that, you need to check everyone. And if you want to ask me a special question, I can tell you. And I'm sure that in Moscow, in your father's home, you can find the examples that is not example the same the question of that in Manhattan. So every place, everyone, every situation, you need to check it.
So, yes. For example, could you follow a das yachad that's not nifsek la'alacha l'tzorich kiruv?
Please again.
To follow a das yachad that's not nifsek la'alacha, to be somech on a das yachad that's not nifsek, or let me just give
it. It depends. You know. If you want to ask me something special, but it depends. It depends if it's that Yochid. For example, if it's that Reb Moshe Feinstein, it's not for me that Yochid. So you need to be to know who is the couple that you want to invite them, and what from where they came, and what is the how much percent you can give that after your kule they come one step close to Hashem. If you give them a kule, and after that another kule and another kule, this is not a way. You need to look for a way that if they came from one step, and now because of that they came closer to Hashem, yes, you can do it, but you need to check it.
If I could ask you, from a Rambam Hilchos Mamrim, Perek Beis Halacha Dalet, he speaks about Yesh lebezdin lakor av dvarim lefisha, afal pishu katan min harishonim shlu yugzeros elu chamur medivrei Torah atzmo. But then he writes, v'chein imro lefisha levatel mitzvahs aseh, ulavar al mitzvahs los aseh, kedei lahachzir rabim ladas, ulahatzil rabim Yisrael mili kashel, b'dvarim acherim, osin lefi masha tzrichim asha. Kishem sharofe chosech yado, o raglo, shel zeh, kedei sheyichye kulo, כך בייזדין מורים בזמן מן הזמנים לעבור על קצת מצוות לפישה, כדי שיסקיימו כולם כדרך שאמרו חכמים הראשונים חל עליו שבס אחת, כדי שישמר שבס הרבה. And I'm asking, if in today's generation, where in America we have over 70% intermarriage, and the shaila is this, today is the matzav of lahachzer rabim ladas, or lahatzel rabim yisrael mili kashel b'dvar machirim. Was it ever more than it is today?
Rabbi. Not every rabbi can do it. You said the lesson of Rambam, and you need to pay attention about the lesson of Rambam that spoke about the Beis Din. Beis Din, it means Beis Din HaGodel. Not every rabbi can take decision about it. Yes, here in Yerushalayim we need to think about, we need to check, and we need to remember that from time to time, if you said something, you can lose a lot of Torah. If you can say something another way, you can earn a lot of Torah. So you need to check every place, everything.
Separately.
And yes, of course.
No, but that's why we're so happy. That's why we're so happy we're speaking to the Nasi of the Beis Din Hagadol in Yerushalayim. That's exactly...
Yes, but I can't tell you. You know that from time to time, this is the time that to speak, I can tell you to your mouth, only your mouth, that yes, you can do it. But to say in your program that that a lot of people heard now our voice, I need to keep and to be sure that no one take mistake from my word.
Okay, so my question is, let's do specific questions. You're learning your Mesader Kedushin for a couple, and they're completely secular. And you have a chance to speak to them about Taharas HaMishpacha. And you know that if you'll speak to them about Archakas, they'll be marchik themselves from you for 2,000 amma minimum. They're not going to come back. The shaila is it considered like we're editing the Torah? Asinu atzmeinu ke'orchei Torah. Is this proper? In what way is it proper to do it? How do you present part of something and then not being mezalzel in Isurei D'Rabbanan?
No. You need to first of all to speak with them about the principle, and after that to give them book that they can learn, and you give them the opportunity to learn, to know. If they prefer to do another thing or to throw your book to garbage, this is their choice. But you need to learn with them, you need to try to tell them, and of course, keep yourself not to be mezalzel in Rabbanon, to tell them this is our Torah, and for us, we need to keep the Raisa and the Rabbanon together. This is one Torah, one tradition, and you can add a few words about the importance of the keeping of the tradition, because the small details, this is a way that can keep tradition, can keep nation. This is a small, you can give one or two stories to explain them, that yes, of course, the small details. Chazal taught us about Netilas Yadayim. This is only Rabbanon. But Netilas Yadayim, because of that, someone ate Chazir. So, because you need to try to tell them the principles, and after that to give them book and to tell them the Oraisa and the Rabbanon, this is a way together we have one Torah. And if you have question about something special, you can ask me, tell them and give them your phone, and I hope that they use with it.
Okay, a Rav is walking down the street on Shabbos, and he sees a member of his community who didn't walk into shul in over a year, but he sees he's walking out of a car and he's talking on the phone. Should the Rav say Good Shabbos, embrace him, or should the rabbi make believe he doesn't see him?
Yeah, I try to not to see him. I try if I can, but I remember one time that I went in the road and the car stopped near me and asked me, excuse me, how can I go to this road? And I tell them, first of all, Shabbat Shalom, Good Shabbos. They smiled. And after that, I told them, I prefer that you are going with me, you can walk with me, not by car. But because that you are in a car, I can tell you that the short way is the next left side or right side. I didn't tell them exactly what is the way, go and go this and this. No, I told them that this is a way. But I told them with that, Shabbat Shalom, and with that I add that please remember that this is not a way for Jew to go. I'm not sure that Shabbat after they'll go not by car, but I'm sure that the smile and the words can come into their heart and maybe can help them even for one melacha.
I remember as a child walking with my father on Leil Yom Kippur, and one of the members, he didn't know anything, and he stopped by and he said, "Rabbi, it's so cold outside. Come in, I'll give you a ride back home in Leil Yom Kippur." So my father wished him a good Yom Tov, a Gemar Chasina Tova. I said, no, we'll walk. We have to walk today.
The child didn't ask your father, maybe you want a cup of coffee, a hot coffee?
Yeah.
Maybe
in Russia they would offer a cup of vodka, yeah.
Vodka, yes.
I want, so for example, I heard a rabbi in Australia, in Canberra, the shul is very far from where people live. So he said you shouldn't drive on Shabbos, but if you drive on Shabbos, you better be driving to shul. Is that okay for a Rav to say?
No, I don't like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like it. In jokes, it is very nice. In joke, but not more, because this is not a way. We can't be mezalzel on Shabbos. No, Shabbos is a so nice gift that Hashem give to our nation. Remember that in the Torah you can see that ot hi beini ubeinechem ledorosechem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote in the Torah that this is the day only for the Jewish nation, and the first Christian. They started in Shabbat, but they changed their day, the special day, to Sunday. The Muslim is the Friday, and we keep our nation. This is according to the promise of Hashem. This is only for you, Oti Beini Benechem. So nice gift, not to be mezalzel, and we can't allow to go by the car in this day, because this is the day that Hashem gave us, and Hashem told us not by car. So we can't tell, okay, if you are in car, please come. I'm sure that no one can tell it that I think that cigarettes is danger. I'm sure that cigarettes is not good. But if you are in cigarettes, please take this company or another. No, this is not the way.
Or Juul, that's what people smoke today. I want to ask a question. Very often, people are mischazek very often around Avelis. Even for people who are far away, Avelis is a very big deal. Saying Kaddish, Yizkor is a very big deal. What happens? You're officiating a funeral, a levaya of a yid who's passed away, and the son is not someone he wasn't in shul again in years. And you come to the Beis HaKvaros and there's no minyan, and he wants to say Kaddish. Is it a chayva of the Rav to be moineh him to say Kaddish because it's davar shebekdusha pachas ma'asara?
No, if he feels that for him to say Kaddish it is very nice, you can invite the trees to be his minyan, but you can tell him that the way is to say it with a sorrow, and I invite you to come to shul and to tell it there. But if he wants and he feels that for him this is something special, I didn't disturb him.
Someone walks into a shul, he wasn't for a long time again, and he puts on a pair of tefillin, and he's putting it on completely wrong. It's the tefillin shel roish is mamish is on the forehead, on the metzach, and you're scared that if you come over to him and you tell him that the tefillin is not in the right place, that he might take it personally or be insulted or feel judged. Is it better to not say anything? You have a suffix, you don't know. The Mincha Shleima, the Shaila that he has, he speaks about Lifnei Iver. He said it's not Lifnei Iver. If someone comes and doesn't say the brachas, it's okay to give him food even though he doesn't say brachas. The Shaila is there a responsibility to try to, when you're a suffix, you don't know if someone will be insulted or not. Is it better to err on the side of caution and not to say anything, or to be machmir and try to say it as nice as possible and tell him, listen, the proper way to put on tefillin, we're so happy you came, but you should put it on, it should be on your forehead where your hair starts to grow?
You can find a way without insulting. You need to find it. And after that, you find the way you can do it, and I'm sure that everyone can find the words. We smile. I come to help you. This is only to help you, not another way. You can do it. With smile, with warmth, with heart, everyone can do it.
Okay. We'll try to get chizik from that. I want to ask you another important thing. We live in very turbulent times. And, there are a lot of political issues, both in America and in Israel, that are in people's minds. And people come in and say, if you're a rabbi, what does the Torah say about this? What does the Torah say about what this or that politician is doing? Is this something we should, how do we respond? Is this something, there should be a das Torah and everything. How does the Rav feel about that?
No. Rabbi is a man that need to guide people to Torah, to mitzvot, to keep themselves in Jewish nation. This is even if you are Democrats or Republican, if you are Likud or Avodah, you need to be a Jew, and this is Rabbi. And if you are only for one part of the Jewish nation, this is not a way to help people to be one nation. No, because of that, and I said it not only because that I'm a judge, and of course that everyone understands the judge must be not from one part of the political, but I said it because that I'm rabbi, and rabbi must be rabbi of all the people, and to be in touch with all of them, not only from one side of the politician map. So this is not the way. Of course, if someone can come to ask you something special, you can try to help him, to give him, to guide him, but not a politician question.
But what if one side supports Israel more, one side supports Israel less? What about speaking about politicians?
No. To support Israel, I'm asking you. All of us must do it. Yes,
all of us
please,
what?
I'm asking you to support Israel.
No, we support Israel, but if there are politicians who support more, politicians who support less, people come and say, Rabbi, who do you think is better for Israel? Who do you think is better for the Jewish people?
No.
They're not asking, what do you think is this better for, which president or which candidate is better for the economy? If wherever it is, in Europe or in South America, North America, wherever people are, people come and say, who's better for the Jewish people? Who's better for Israel? What should be the response?
Of course, if someone is against of Israel, this is something special. Against Jewish people, and you need to be sure that this is against the way, not against the Jews. But because of that, this is it's a place that rabbis need to say if someone is against. But because that I know that all of them are with Israel, but maybe they are thinking thinking that this is a way better to Israel, and another said that no, my way is better to Israel. This is the place the rabbi need to take himself one step back and to not speak with politics.
Okay. I want to ask a question. A rabbi who's a rabbi in a community that it's a mixed community. There are Shomer Shabbos and those who are not Shomer Shabbos. There are those who are close, those who are observant, and those who are very distant. What's the ikar achrayus of the Rav? Is it towards to be mechazik the strong, or to be mechazik those who are far away? Or if I could ask it in a more personal note, the Rav Rashi, you are the Rav Rashi of Eretz Yisrael. You have, I think, close to 7 million Jews. How many Shomer Shabbos are in Eretz Yisrael today? 2 million?
I don't know exactly because you can call Shomer Shabbos for someone that not his way is Jewish life. You need to think about it. Shomer Shabbos is a Shomer Shabbos with 24 hours exactly all the Lametet Meloches, all the Toldes, all the Shvutim, and another people that Shemer Shabbos, but I'm not sure that they know exactly all the Shvutim. So because of that, this is I know that the most of them are keep Shabbos, and this is important. Of course, they say Kiddush. You can see the movie. You can see the movie that people come from they walk in Shabbat and they say Kiddush from the cell phone. So who is Shomer Shabbos? Thanks God, we have a lot of Shomer Shabbos here in Israel, and of course that we pray to feel it in the Rishus Rabim also.
So my question is, there are a few million people who are not yet. As the Lubavitch Rebbe said, there are only two types of Yidden in the world. Those are Lubavitch Chassidim and those who are not yet Lubavitch Chassidim. So there are a few million Jews in Israel who are not as close to Torah mitzvahs as we would like them to be. Does the Rav feel what's the main achrayus? Is towards those who are already connected or towards those who are still not? What's the ikar tafkid of a Rav?
I try to connect everyone to our tradition. I try to do it. This is my goal. This is my way. And please again?
It's Einoi Bezachar Zet, it's only the Vasachas, everyone together? It's Shaykh
because this is our prayer, but we need we need to be sure that everyone is okay. And this is a way that we need to learn. We need to go and step by step. This is a way, and I hope one day to see all our Jewish nation. I remember that when I heard the song of Reb Shlomo Karlibach, he said that he went in a road in, I don't know exactly if it's between Manhattan to the Brooklyn Bridge or another way, and he saw a lot of millions of people, and it was in Shabbos. They come by their cars, and he prayed that Mizmor Shir Le'yom HaShabbos, all the world will keep Shabbos, and he prayed, and he sang, and this is something that one Jew looked in his eyes, not the time, the present of that cars. He looked at the dream. He have a dream, and he believe and trust about the future. And he tried to see that future is not so far. Maybe it's more close. So I try to do the same. This is where I go. I'm going from the east to west, from north to south, to meet people, and all of them together. We pray that one day all of them can know and can feel that we are one
Amen.
Nation, one tradition, and one Hashem. And this is a way that if we believe, if we go according to this, I believe that one day we can feel it and we can see it in our eyes.
Thank you very much. The Rav Rashi, could I ask one last question?
Yes.
Some people feel that Kiruv is a mitzvah for professionals. It's if you're an Esha Torah, if you're an Arachim, if you're in Lev La'achim, if you're a Shliach Chabad, then you have a chiyuv to do Kiruv. Is Kiruv a chiyuv on specific individuals, or it's a Kol Ish Yisrael? And I don't know if I could quote the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, in Mitzvah Saseh, the Mitzvah Gimel, he speaks about Avas HaKodesh Baruch Hu shetzivanu ba'avaso Yis'alei, v'zeh shenachshov v'nizboner b'mitzvosav, but then he says forward, וכבר ביארנו שזו המצווה גם כוללת שנהיה קוראים לבני האדם כולם לעבודתו יסעלה ולהאמין בו. וזה שעתה כשתאהב איש אחד תספר בשבחיו ותרבה בהם ותקרא בני אדם לאהוב also, יסעלה באמת כאשר יגיע לך מהסוגס המסוסו וכו' וכו'. So if you read the Rambam simply, it's part of Avas Hashem is doing Kiruv. Kiruv is not for professionals. It's Kiruv for people who are trained, who specifically chose to do this, or outreach is something that every single Jew is obligated in doing. It's part of your mitzvah. If you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's part of your mitzvah to tell the whole world about Hashem and about the Torah.
Every Jew says it twice a day. Shema Yisrael, ve'ohavto es Hashem Elokecho. And Chazal taught us that ve'ohavto es Hashem Elokecho, it means שיהיה שם שמיים מתאהב על ידך. שיהיה שם שמיים מתאהב על ידך, that if you are going exactly according to Torah, exactly to the way שיהיה משא ומתן בנחת עם הבריות, this is speaking about every Jew, everyone, not only about the organizations of Kiruv, not only about the Aish or another way. This is not only about Rav Lau or Rav Goldschmidt. This is for all of us, that if we are going with the way that can show that ראו פלוני שלמד תורה, כמה נעים מעשיו, כמה מתוקנים מעשיו. This is ve'ohavto, that every Jew must do it. Every Jew said twice a day, ve'ohavto. Every Jew try to do twice a day ma'asim of Kiruv, and because of that, we can be one nation with one tradition.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this divrei chizuk, the divrei hadracha and halacha, and we hope to speak to you soon again.
My pleasure to be with you again, and everyone, I want to bless you from Yerushalayim, that today is very cold day to New York, that I know that you have a week of cold days, but in the heart we feel the warmth of Jewish heart home. This is a way of one nation to feel that we have one heart.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
We have on the phone with us Sivan Rahav Meir. Now, if you do not know who Sivan Rahav Meir is, it means you're lacking in knowledge, because probably today she's one of the biggest Torah teachers in the world. And I'm not joking. She gives a weekly class in Hichal Shlomo in Jerusalem, sometimes thousands of participants. She's not a classic Torah teacher. Sivan Rahav Meir is a top Israeli journalist, primetime news reporter, publicist, TV and radio anchor. And I know it's a very busy day today in Israel, and I appreciate so much you taking the time. Sivan, how are you? Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. How are you?
Excellent. So thank you so much for joining Headlines. And we're having a conversation about all things outreach. Has outreach gone too far, or we haven't gone far enough? How to do outreach right, how to teach Torah to people who are not familiar to Torah. And I want to speak to you. You grew up in Ramat Sharon. You started journalism at a very young age. There's a famous photo of you at the age of 14 with Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin right before Yitzhak Rabin was killed. Can you tell me a little about your personal journey becoming religious, becoming observant?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I really think that that's the main headline, okay, the topic you chose, this subject. Although now the headlines in Israel, while we speak, when I watch the news, Israeli Prime Minister faces corruption charges, these are the headlines. And I'm about to go to the studio in a few hours. I will be there also hosting a show, the night show, and we will talk and discuss, these issues. But I do think that what you chose, this headline of Kiruv, and how can we reach, all the Jews in the world, basically, and let them, really to get to know their identity, I think that's even more important. And now I will really try to answer your question, although it is a hard one, because we all have our own personal journey. I can only share, what happened to me. I really was brought up in Herzliya, which is a big city near Tel Aviv in the center of Israel. And until the age of 15, I never met an observant Jew. It may sound weird, and maybe I'm not supposed to say it here, because I want your listeners to know only good things about our beloved country, about Israel. But I have to tell you, that's the truth. You can grow up in Israel, during the 90s, without even knowing one Jew who's, when I say observant, I mean, all the sectors, all the streams. No one, no Hasidic, Yeshivish, Litvak, Breslev, Lubavitch, nothing. Shomer Shabbos, I think no Jew I knew, was Shomer Shabbat. And that's really weird, At the age of 15, I met for the first time 3 observant girls, And I was already a journalist, a young journalist, and I wanted to interview them because I interviewed, everybody about everything. So I thought that's like a headline, to meet 3 religious girls. That was like a scoop. That was so unique. And they laughed at me because I asked really silly questions. And they said, "Why don't publish the interview? Okay, you're completely clueless. Okay, it will be weird. Don't publish it." But they said, "Why don't you come for Shabbos? Why don't you really get to know us? To know who we are?" And I said, "Okay, why not?" As an investigative journalist, it was for me an item. But Shabbos wasn't just an item, and that was the beginning of everything. Getting to experience real Shabbos. It was in the city of Beersheba, a big city in the south, and it all started there. That's my personal story. I think that's
so
the most.
Second. So is it fair to say that you think? What do you think is a more powerful tool for outreach? A Shabbat meal or learning Torah?
Exactly, Shabbos and Torah, and I will explain. It's a very boring tshuva story. Today we have all these celebrities with these fascinating tshuva stories. People, they converted and they did cool, crazy things all over the world. And I'm just telling you about a normal Shabbos in Beersheba. I mean, what's so fascinating about it? I really think that the basic elements, just come and talk about the real thing, about Shabbos, and really Torah was also very meaningful. I really loved, reading and writing. That was my hobby. That was everything to me. But I never met Rashi, and I've never met, Baal Shem Tov, and here in Israel, Professor Nechama Leibovich, and Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe, and of course the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Sfas Emes. It was hard, but I with the commentators. So
first of all, I love the salad. How you bring the Sfas Emes with the Lubavitcher Rebbe and everything together, and the Nechama Leibovich.
yeah, it was really fascinating, to meet them all. It was a salad, but it was a tasty one. I saw that something good is happening here. And again, I don't want to tell the truth about our educational system, but you can really be, at the age of 15, and I never met Rashi. I knew nothing about Rashi. So yeah, it was for me an adventure to start, exploring the Torah all alone. I was sitting on Shabbos, and just reading it. It was beautiful, just to get to know myself, my heritage. It was mine. It wasn't theirs, These girls from Beersheba, I remember the first girl that bought Masechet Avot for me, and as a gift, she gave it to me. And I was reading it, I still know it by heart because I was reading it, again and again, exploring again our mutual heritage, which unfortunately I never met till then. So I do believe that Shabbos and Torah, these are the main tools, and I think again every Jew must know them. We have elections in Israel now, so everything is so political and so diverse, and all the left and left-right wing disputes and conflicts. I think that when we say L'chadodi, when Shabbos, every week, when Shabbos starts, basically, comes, so in L'chadodi we say, Yaminu Smol Tifrotzi. How can we translate? Break through the right and the left.
Right and left.
Exactly. And then the sentence continues, and Ve'et Hashem Ta'aritzi, and you should worship Hashem. I mean, there is something above Yamin and small, above left and right, or if you want to say Republicans and Democrats. I think really Shabbos is more important, and our Torah. It's you can vote for this party or for the other party, and I will think you're completely wrong. But I think our identity must be above all these small sectors that we created. Okay, when we received the Torah there in Mount Sinai, nobody was voted there for Bennett or for Kachlon or for Lapid. We're standing there together. So that's we should return to this situation.
Okay, in America mostly it's Democrats and Republicans, but I'm sure many are following what's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. As someone who teaches Torah and you have tens of thousands, you have 150,000 followers on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on WhatsApp, you're on YouTube, your classes are literally through all the new media, new age media. You're using all the tools. You're using all the chatzotzrot. That they used to have, the forms of communication. And I want to ask you if you think that before you teach, do you think about how do people who never learn Torah will perceive what you are teaching now?
Yes, of course. First
Is that
of
a
all,
question that goes through your mind?
Yeah. I think, I imagine myself at the age of 15 all the time. I keep thinking about Sivan at the age of 15, and I thought awful things, really awful things about Judaism, because all I knew was, I don't want to use the phrase fake news, but really what the Israeli TV showed us about the Orthodox, extreme, Haredi, settlers, I thought awful things about them, all of them. So I really think of how can I talk to this teenager and showing her the beautiful things we have, and leave, make her, I don't want to forget or maybe ignore for a few minutes, all the headlines she's reading about all these extreme Rabbanim and all these extreme settlers and Haredi people. And I want to talk about, the essence. And I'm really using all these tools, and thank you for,
your question.
Yeah.
How many what do you think is the percentage of your listeners? You get a lot of mails back that are not observant that listen to you.
I think maybe half, but
half are not observant. Wow.
I can't really say because we just came back from Baltimore now a few days ago. Me and my husband Yedidia, and we were there for 3 days. Meaning like almost 10 different communities and shuls. And a month earlier, we visited Atlanta, okay, and also meeting the shuls and the communities, and I discovered that people there, I never imagined them watching the shiurim and listening, getting the WhatsApp. The WhatsApp is translated into English every day, so I see that people that are coming to the weekly shiur, the weekly lecture we have, and there I see, Israeli soldiers and students, and sometimes it's Bnei Akiva, it's the religious people, and sometimes like more frum, like Haredi women, and I see all of them, in front of me. But I never imagined the women and men in Atlanta or Baltimore, so I really don't know. And Baruch Hashem, I'm really talking to them all. But I think the main thing here is I'm not an expert. I'm not a Rebbitzin. I'm not. I really don't know so much. I'm a journalist.
You are a storyteller, and that's the most important quality.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. I'm a journalist, and I'm 37, so for 34, 35 years, my job was to make you watch when I talk about what happened today, in the Supreme Court in Israel or in the Knesset, our parliament, and I was covering, huge demonstrations, and I wanted you or press conferences, and I wanted you to stay. Now I'm using these tools. In order to make you listen to what's going on, in our parasha, in the weekly portion that we read in the Torah. So basically, you can say I'm really using all the tools that I've been using for years. In the last 2-3 years, when I started talking about our Torah, you can say, by the way, it's superficial, and I will say, yeah, you're right, Rabbi Goldschmidt. It's not so deep, I'm not talking about all the depths that are, you can read a book and find more meaningful things about the parasha. But I think nowadays, with the new media, we must use these tools because, unfortunately, Rashi is not on Facebook, and I never saw the Maimonides, he didn't upload like a story for like 800 years, okay? Sorry for talking, I think they're not there, and we must bring them there, because otherwise they will stay, on the shelf in the books. But if we are on Facebook all day, so they must be a part of our feed, to take all these ancient texts and bring them into our feed. That's the mission. So I'm not inventing anything, and nothing there is mine, okay? It's all, I only quote. But I do think that's the main mission we're all facing, to be relevant today.
So, Sivan, let me ask you a question. You said you're a journalist. Do you feel like sometimes we, or any person who teaches Torah, we're also serving as editors? When you're teaching, you're choosing what to teach and what not to teach. And my question is, are you editing and trying to think, are teachers who are teaching Judaism sometimes avoiding speaking about subjects that are too difficult to speak about? That's my question. For example, try explaining why destroying the entire nation of Amalek to someone who has no connection to Judaism and never opened a Chumash before in his life, his or her life. What do you think? Is that something you try to avoid? Is that something you edit out, or you face head-on all the difficult subjects that you see from the Torah?
First of all, it's not me. I know I'm the main editor, but I have many editors. I mean, it's like a partnership, because all the people that are coming to the weekly shiur or listening from abroad, from Israel or from all over the world, they keep sending me stuff, materials, mails all the time. It's a mutual, every week I quote them. For example, the main issue in Jerusalem where I teach, I think these are mostly singles, coming to the shiur. And for them, that's the main thing, dating and how to choose today when you have so many options, and when you're already 30 plus and so many people around you. For example, every week they find something in the parasha, that has to do something with their own problems. And when someone in our shiur, Baruch Hashem, gets married or even engaged, so we celebrate it, and they send their own letter and their own messages to us. Let's say that's one example. Another topic that again I see that's I'm sorry, but nobody wakes up and asks themselves. I don't know. Maybe I'm again too superficial, but I don't think people are asking themselves questions about Amalek, or even about Zionism and Torah, science and Torah. Where was God during the Holocaust? All these philosophical questions, they are very important. But I'm sorry, I ask myself mainly, where is God now when I'm spending 2 hours a day, using WhatsApp and Facebook? I think that's today more crucial. So I try to be relevant and ask people, what do you think is the most interesting thing? And they keep writing about the relationship, inside the family when it comes to raising their kids and having limits as parents. And of course, a lot of media and new media stuff. We have a lot of new immigrants, Olim, people that made Aliyah from the States, or they come only for a year from Midrasha, and they also come and share. And it's interesting to see the way they see Israel. Sometimes they teach us how to see ourselves. So I try to listen to them. We get really hundreds of messages from all over the world, and we try to see what do they see as relevant, and to discuss it. Nobody asked about Amalek yet. What can I do?
Question. Can I ask you a question? There is a resurgence of a secular study of Torah in Israel. Ruth Calderon gave her famous speech at the Knesset when she was elected as a Knesset member, and she took out a Gemara and Ksuvos, if I remember correctly. There are these Beit Midrash in Tel Aviv. What do you think? Where does it come from? How do you explain this phenomenon?
Basically, I think it comes out of curiosity, and again, they feel that the Torah is also theirs, which is, of course, it's true. But and again, people sometimes say, I can't talk about the Torah in a neutral way, and I agree. You see, the first thing that I say, there is holiness here. We treat the Torah as a holy text. We try to learn from the Torah. We don't teach Rashi. We try to have modesty, anava. When we talk about our ancestors, okay, I will not say what did Sarah Imenu did wrong here, and Abraham he was fooled by. That's not the way I treat.
By the way, one of the favorite lines I heard you say is that you used to talk about Sarah Netanyahu, and now you speak about Sarah Imenu.
Yeah, I see people are interested in scoops. When it comes to Sarah Imenu, they're also interested in scoops about her. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I try to see how the Torah can improve us, and I don't try to improve the Torah. It's me that's not perfect. It's not the Torah that's not perfect. That's. But I don't want to talk, against. I'm not in. Again, as I said, I'm not. I have no official job. I interviewed Calderon when she was Chavrat Knesset, a member of the parliament, and MK. I interviewed her. I disagree, but people can choose, and see. And when I started, I also thought, it's in a more like academic way, when I started learning, I also thought, it's not a holy text, it's an interesting one, okay? So maybe it's just a phase. Exactly. Maybe it's like a phase, a stage, okay, a step that they're taking until they reach the right grade, how to treat our Torah.
Question. You're observing from the side, you see this whole surge in outreach movements within the religious world. You have Eshet Torah, you have Meir, you have rabbis on campuses, you have Chabad all over the world. What are some of the things you think that the outreach world is doing right, and what are some of the things you feel like there's still place for improvement?
First of all, it shows the necessity of, they are all needed, they're all required, and they're all wanted. It's fun to see, Chabad and really so many activities, and it's good to see that people can choose how to get closer to Judaism. I do feel that maybe the main failure is again Shabbos, because let's think of it. It's the most beautiful thing, I think, in our life. We will all agree. If you ask every person who's like dati, in Israel we call it chardal and light. The more liberal, open, like Orthodox people, and the more like conservative people within the Orthodox world. But they will all agree that Shabbos, that's the main gift we got, especially nowadays. So when we're all connected like 24/7, and we have the privilege of being like, for one day during the week, to remain sane people. So why don't we, succeed in promoting this value of Shabbos? I would expect that all the frum people in the world will say, okay, that's the main thing. Before we talk about anything else, all the other subjects are less important, because I think when a Jew is connected to Shabbos, that's the main thing. So again, I keep asking myself, why can't we agree that that's the main thing we should promote? Just think that every family that keeps Shabbos will invite another family. That will be like the mission for a year, to add another family, another Jewish family to this Shabbos circle, okay?
And you feel like that's more important than teaching Torah?
Again, it comes together. Maybe because in my personal story, the first time I had the time, I was relaxed and I could really read Torah was on Shabbos, because during the 6 days, of Yom Chol of the week.
Maybe that's why the Chafetz Chaim writes you get a double reward for learning on Shabbos.
Yeah, exactly. Really, you can come down and really be concentrated, focused, and so it's also, if you be Shomer Shabbos, I guess you'll also learn more Torah. But I do think that's again the main tool, the main remedy we have for the humanity.
When you teach Torah, do you also comment on political matters? And do you think it's important? People say, if you're teaching Torah, what does the Torah have to say about what's happening in Israel, what's happening in America, what's happening in the world? And you are very, when you teach, you quote from a lot of different sources, both Jewish and both in current events. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah. No, in the weekly look, I have other places. Baruch Hashem, I write every week. I write a column, and Yediot Acharonot, and I have a weekly show, on Galei Tzahal, the IDF radio, with my husband Yedidya. So, and I work for Channel 12. I have other places. When I want to say, and I have things to say about Gantz or Lapid or Netanyahu, I think it belongs, it's not there. I have other stages, other places. And here, people really from all different kind of people are coming, and I want to respect them. And again, if I said the Torah is above the political disputes, so that's not the right place, to add all my personal thoughts about the elections this week. I have other places for that, and people also want to rest. If they come, they give me, the most precious thing they have, their time, and 45 minutes of their time. So let's try to fill it with with important, more meaningful content, but we talk about current affairs, but not specific political figures. They do hear about the news. I don't know if your listeners know about this ugly word in Hebrew, hadata. Do you know what it is in Israel?
Yes.
Hadata.
How do you translate it into English?
No way. We tried.
That was my next question. What do you do when you're teaching, when you're learning Torah with someone, and that person says, "Are you trying to change me?" Like, why? If you're in a relationship and one tries to change the other person is not trying to change the first. Do you think there's a problem in the relationship?
Yeah, listen, I learned from them, more than I think maybe they learned from me. There were two ladies that now converted, for example, young ladies converted, and they teach me a lot. They come to the shiur, they listen to the shiur. We have like yeah, exactly. It's not like I know everything, and now you will learn from me the truth. That's not the attitude, We all learn together. It was created, nothing here was planned. The shiur started with a very small group of singles that wanted to learn Torah. Baruch Hashem, we have thousands of listeners and, people that are coming today, but we feel it's like a mutual, it's a mutual project. So I really learn a lot from them. We have people that almost every week I quote them, and I want to know, I send them the materials before I give the shiur. I have 3 different people, and they were a famous Rav and a biology student that helps me with different angles, and they all read it every week before I give the shiur. I want to hear what they say. It's I don't think I'm so I'm so smart. So I really for me, it's fascinating because, for example, I brought from Baltimore, 4 or 5 different new ideas about the parasha. So,
if you want to share one particular idea, would be happy to hear.
We heard. Maybe it will be funny, but we were on Shabbos morning. We davened at Ner Tomid shul. And Rabbi Israel Motzen was talking there, the shul's Rebbe was talking there. And he was talking about the Parashat Kitisa. And he said only 2 words, but for me, when I came back to Israel, I shared people, for Hebrew speakers, it teaches new, meaningful ways to look at the parasha. And I will give you 2 examples in English, and then in Hebrew, you'll understand. Because he said, when Moshe enters Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. Now, excuse me, but for the first time in my life, I heard that Ohel Moed is the tent of meeting. I never thought about it.
The word hivadut.
Exactly, meeting is Isha. Exactly. Yeah. So Hashem is meeting Moshe. Ohel Moed for me, okay, it's a hard word, it's high level in Hebrew. Moed, to meet someone, lehitvaed. I never thought of the meaning of Ohel Moed. And now he's saying the tent of meeting. Wow, that's a completely different, it's a new concept of seeing Ohel Moed. But then he said...
Thank God for the Art Scroll translation.
Exactly. I think when we say Shnai Mikra ve'echad Tirgum, maybe we should read, not the Aramaic, the English version, because Art Scroll will give us a new way, to understand the basic Hebrew. I never think about it when it's in Hebrew. And then he said that Moshe breaks the luchot, please complete, Rabbi Goldschmidt, he breaks the
tablets.
The tablets. Now, I look at Yedidia, my husband, and he's looking at me, and nobody's there is surprised except the 2 Israelis that are there. Do you understand what it means, breaking the tablets? I imagined a tablet that is broke for the real tablets that are broken, and that's also a disaster when a tablet is broken. But now when you think of it as a luach,
Jobs got the idea,
exactly, exactly. So, and I never imagined it that way, And now, please, that's of course the real disaster here is the holy tablets. But when you even think about a simple tablet being broke, maybe you understand part of the disaster. So we were both laughing, but nobody understood why. So even thinking of our Torah in English, I think I came back home with new perspectives. You understand? I try to listen all the time and think about think but new creative ways to understand our Torah.
So my question, I'm going to push you a little bit to the wall over here.
Okay, no problem. But I have to go to the studio in a few minutes. No problem.
As someone who grew up secular,
and
today is teaching Torah to the thousands. How would you, if you would have to rate how successful we are in communicating Torah to the rest of the world, in Israel, in America, in Europe? On one hand, there's a lot of great things, and on another hand, look at the numbers, look at the general attitude, look at the animosity, look at the misunderstandings. How would you rank on 1 to 10? Where are we right now?
Wow, it's hard because really fascinating things are happening, positive things and negative things are happening, and it's like parallel. I think maybe instead of describing the problems, maybe I will share an idea I had there again in Baltimore about a solution. I wanna try to tell you what I've experienced there. We were eating on Shabbos with Rabbi Moshe Hauer from Shaarei Zion. I don't know if you know who he is, but really, he was fascinating. And he was telling us that secular students from Israel came to Baltimore, and they met him, and they even met the Rosh Yeshiva of, an Israel Yeshiva, Rabbi Feldman, and they were fascinating as secular students from Israel, and they really became closer to Judaism while they were touring Jewish Baltimore. Now, I was telling him about the famous project called JWRP, Jewish Women Renaissance Project, secular women from the States coming to Israel and getting closer here, seeing Jerusalem and all the places, the holy places, and the tourists, they spend a week in Israel, and then they change something in their life because they are exposed to what's going on here. And then I started thinking, what's going on here? We take secular people from Israel to the Jewish communities in the States, and then we take secular women from the States to see Israel. So what is it, Meshane Makom, Meshane Mazal? What's going on here? And then, because they were reading the Torah, again, Parashat Kitisa, we were reading about Machatzit HaShekel. And I thought, in Machatzit HaShekel, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says that we are supposed to see ourselves as Machatzit, as a half a shekel. We're only one half, and we have to find the other half in order to really be complete, to be perfect. And then I started thinking about us. Maybe it's a new version of Jerusalem and Babylon. We have Jerusalem and the States, the two greatest Jewish communities in the world, and maybe we can solve each other's problems. And I'm really thinking about it for the first time now. I haven't really, deeply thought about
it. The reform movement is trying to do a reverse birthright. There's some ideas that Israelis should do birthright to see the American Jewish community. Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, I don't know if we should go to see the reform communities. I'm saying we people from Israel, if they will meet U.S. Jewry, I think they'll be really impressed, and we had a lot of things to learn from you. I know that we're tzabers and we're perfect. We have nothing to learn. We have some. I know that's basically that's the attitude when you're an Israeli, but with a lot of pride. But we're not. We're only half. We're only machatzit, and maybe you have. Again, when I see your shuls, for example, you don't only come in daven. That's a huge empire of the whole community, and you can do everything there. Jewish activities, and it's a community center. Everything's going on there, and in Israel, it's completely different. And when I look at Jewish education, you pay a lot. I know you pay too much, but maybe it means something. Here, everything is almost free. Maybe when you pay, you also say, "I care." And maybe you care about Jewish education more than us. And maybe, again, we can learn things from your educational system. And, of course, there are many things you can learn from us. So I really think maybe that's, again, the next stage, learning from each other's experience. I think that's going to be helpful for both Machatziot HaShekel. And maybe together we can really be, more complete.
I'll ask you a question. At the end of the day, for a decision for you to become religious, was it an emotional decision or intellectual decision?
No, emotional.
Emotional. Did the intellect follow, or?
Yeah, but I never, I was never looking for answers, about there's this whole subject of proofs. Okay, proof to me. How can you say Mount Sinai was here and the world was really,
questions about Torah Min Hashamayim didn't keep you up at night.
Yeah. The questions about myself, my soul, Lashon Hara. How can I be better? How can I talk and think and act in a different way? How can I improve my own characteristics? Midot. That was basically the thing that really changed my life. But I understand there are, other paths, other ways, and people sometimes need the intellectual challenge, let's say. But I was never searching, for evidence, prove and show and demonstrate, and I never had to use these tools.
Do you think most people are that way as well? Would you say so?
I think at the end of the day, yeah. They won't admit it, but at the end of the day, yeah, we care about, our relationship with our parents and spouse and children and bosses at work, and that's, I think,
So you think
Netanyahu says...
At the end of the day, the messaging should be, if you'd have to draft a messaging, a statement for the release for the press, the messaging should be how Judaism makes your life more meaningful. How does it improve your relationship?
I don't want to sell it, as a new method, like it's not a market. I'm not, Judaism doesn't need public relations, the PR to promote it. I think it's worth a try. Come and see. Come and really meet it. See it. Experience it. Don't believe what you read, and what you see on the news. Come and see what it means to you.
You know the story about the Lubavitch rabbi was on a plane. There's a person sitting next to him, extremely secular, and had bad feelings about Judaism, and he said, Judaism's so strict, it's so detailed in minutia, and it has to be updated, and so on and so forth. And after 20 minutes of screaming at the rabbi turns at him and says, listen, I understand your frustrations, but I don't work in management. I work in sales. I'm an ish mechirot. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I have a show now.
No problem.
It's not live. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Bye.
We have on the phone with us Dovi Scheiner. Dovi Scheiner is known as, together with Esti, his wife, he founded the Soho Synagogue, which was the cool, hip synagogue downtown, and he did many other great things. Dovi, it's great to have you. Reb Dov.
Benyomin, it's a true honor to be on the phone with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Tell me, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I grew up in Borough Park, the youngest of 4 children. My father's father sent the boys in the Bronx to Lubavitch Yeshiva. My mom was a Beis Yaakov girl, so that's why we lived in Borough Park. So I had exposure to sort of both ends of the spectrum. But I went to Lubavitch Yeshivas and ultimately bought into the Rebbe's vision for Jewish outreach.
Okay, excellent. And how did you choose to go to Soho?
Yeah, so our story was, when Esti and I dated, we both felt passionate about doing outreach. We probably would have gone the sort of conventional Chabad route. But our wedding day, obviously we didn't plan it, but we woke up on the morning of September 11th, 2001. And a couple hours after we woke up, the planes hit. And so our chuppah was in front of 770 with smoke behind the canopy, and that was very, very traumatic and emotional. And so we felt drawn to Lower Manhattan, and Chabad, Lubavitch had that geography covered. So we had to make a strategic decision of not going where we felt we were drawn, or going without the sort of affiliation that we were most familiar with. And ultimately we chose to sort of just go and figure it out without the Lubavitch brand.
You didn't get the Lubavitch franchise.
Yeah, we were not part of that system, and that was uncharted territory for us, and it wasn't necessarily easy, but we felt compelled to do it. And so we initially moved a few blocks away from Ground Zero on Chambers Street in Tribeca, and then when some young people said, let's start a shul, We realized that Soho had never had a shul, so we said, let's go where there's nothing currently, and we said, let's call it Soho Synagogue, and that turned out to be marketing gold.
Excellent. And Soho is almost like Borough Park, where you grew up, in terms of the Sivan. Is that correct?
Give or take. Give or take.
Okay, the subject today I'd like to discuss with you, Kiruv, have we gone too far or we haven't gone far enough?
Great question.
And I want to take your take. I want to speak to you about your take on the things. You know, Kiruv organizations used to be these serious Shabbatons with 40 lectures, with programming, with lectures ranging from Torah Sinai, Hilchos Shabbos, Hebrew for starters, and so on and so forth. Today, the Kiruv world is nightclub parties, comedy nights, pool tables, and I feel like there's been a certain transformation within the Kiruv attitude, and I'd like to hear your opinion about what's going on.
Wow, Benyomin, I think you're asking an astounding question. It's an incredible question, an incredibly important question, and I have a lot of experience that informs my perspective, and so I'll say it's a split screen. I think the intention is very, very good, and the idea. I don't think we're going far enough in the sense that I don't think we've reached every Jew yet in a meaningful way. And until we do, we have to keep innovating and we have to keep evolving towards that goal. So I think we haven't gone far enough in terms of inspiration and reaching every Jew. In terms of what you're describing, look, I'm very, very well equipped to address that because Soho Synagogue, which was a big project for me, which has sunsetted and has evolved into something new called Soho Supper Club, I went on that path to a certain extent where it took on a social/party identity, and I think it went that way because it sort of just took off on its own, and suddenly there were very large numbers of people in the room, and the larger the crowd comes on a certain level, the harder it becomes to convey content. And what we've evolved to in our sort of 2.0 is going back to content. And at the end of the cycle that I ran with Soho Synagogue, I was so fatigued, and I would be in a loft, and the DJ would be playing, and there were 200 people there. And mind you, this is extremely important work on many levels. Young Jews are meeting other Jews. It's an entryway to other programming, which is more substantive. But I was like, what am I doing here? And what am I going to be doing in 20 years from now? You know, still up at 11 o'clock, you know, in a bouncing room. And we've come to a new project.
First of all, who says you can't dance with a DJ in 20 years from now, you know? You know how I noticed I became old at a chasana, you know, when you're kicked out of the inner circle. And I noticed that I'm dancing in the third circle around the chasana and kala, slowly marching. That's how you know you're old, you know? Okay?
I give you credit for trying to get into the inner circle. But, yeah, no, one of the things we actually were very careful on all of our events, there was music, but there was never dancing, actually. But just the atmosphere wasn't stimulating to me, and I didn't feel it was having the level of impact that is possible and necessary. And so we've come to a new format, which is much more intimate, where there's much more content. And I feel that is an update that has to happen in the world of Jewish outreach. There has to be a realization that the differentiator of what we're offering ultimately isn't social, it's spiritual, and that people need that and want that, and that it behooves us to figure out ways to convey the substance of Judaism.
Okay, so before we go any deeper, I just want to say that I know many people who were personally impacted by your work positively. I know people who have met a Jewish spouse because of you, because of Soho Synagogue. I've spoken to people recently that they got their first taste of Yiddishkeit at the Soho Synagogue. I've heard great things about you, and I've people I know who go daven with you on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and enjoy your services. But I'd like to take you a little bit. Listen, you got a lot of press. You did a lot of buzz when you first came out. And I just want to quote a little bit from what was written and just hear a little bit back. The New York Times article reported the following. Soho Synagogue first made headlines more than 5 years ago when it began hosting buzz-filled downtown parties without obvious religious content. So the question is, are we diluting it too much? Or Or for example, attire and website. It says in another piece, attire is anything goes. The trendy website, which contains no contact information, shows glamorous party shots of men and women socializing. And I have to give you the credit. You got the people that every single Kiruv organization and every single Jewish outreach organization wants in the room. You got them into the room. The people who don't sign up to all other programs signed up to you. And I know many people have been personally impacted by your work. But my question is to you, what is the Gedder? What's the borderline? How far do we go?
Yeah, so the answer is, we've evolved. Yeah, let me tackle. We've evolved now to a subtler, more intimate, more mature experience. And I went to one of our supporters from the Soho Synagogue days, and he's someone who is more traditional then and has become even more traditional over time. So he davens in a frum shul today, wears a yarmulke, very, very, very committed. And I was sort of like apologetic for the experience of our 1.0, and I said, I'm so happy that we're doing something that's more than a party. And he said, don't underestimate the importance of those parties. And what he was saying and what he explained is when you take a young Jew, and I think this is the epic failure, of modern times, is that you have a majority of young Jews today. If you stop them on the street, you should be able to say what's the best thing that has happened to you in your life. They should, without thinking, say the fact that I am Jewish. But most of them get to 20, get to 30 without having much of a conception that Judaism is a value add in their life. They see it as irrelevant. They don't see it as talking to their lives. They would think that a yoga studio or Eastern religion has more to offer them in terms of living a healthy and spiritual life. And that's patently, false, but that's our failure. That's our failure of marketing. They also see, Jewish experiences as what I like to describe as, tom-toms in a dusty basement. So we haven't evolved the aesthetic. We haven't evolved the perception. So when you take that young Jew who's never seen Judaism as something that's beautiful, something that's exciting, and you suddenly walk them into Cipriani Wall Street, and there's 2,000 young Jews in black ties, and there's a rabbi and a rebbitzin in the middle of the room stopping anyone who's trying to turn it into a dance party, and, yarmulke and tzitzis, and the food is kosher, and the people are Jewish, and suddenly they're... One second.
If I could stop you. The DJ is not playing the Miami Boys Choir or Yaakov Shweki singing Rachim. And it doesn't feel like a party in Beis Fega Hall in Lakewood. So...
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So there are definitely that's the compromise that you're pointing to.
No, I'm playing devil's advocate right now.
No, and I completely respect that, and I think the point is well made, and I think that where I stand today is I feel I was a part of innovating the trendiness and the packaging. I think that's an important innovation. But where I personally have evolved to is bringing that back and dialing that back and realizing that we should use that aesthetic sophistication and that marketing, but we should do it not towards parties. The occasional party is fine, but the focus should be on building community and education of, Jewish spirituality.
So you're gonna compromise on the quantity of people who attend the events and focus more on fewer people and more interaction?
Yeah, look, we in Manhattan, the way our entire community evolved was we had been, downtown for a couple of years. We were serving sort of across demographics. We met one young man named Scott, walking down the street on Shabbos. We were coming home from shul. He had a ponytail. He said, "Good Shabbos." We invited him to our house a couple of times. We said, "Bring your friends." He said, "Look, my friends aren't going to come to a rabbi's house, but they'll come to my house." So every Friday for a few weeks, we would cook the chicken, get into the back of a taxi, with trays with oil. If we made a wrong turn, we got stained and the car got stained. And he filled his house as he said he would. with guests. And that became the nucleus of our community. But suddenly those tables of 15 turned into 50 and...
Hello?
Yeah,
I couldn't hear. You broke up a little bit.
Sorry. So
suddenly those tables of 15 turned into?
They turned into larger groups who were interested in the experience that we were offering. And we thought that was a good thing. We thought the numbers were a good thing. But what we ultimately came to realize is you can't really beat an intimate setting around food, around conversation, where the person could really get to know you, you could get to know them, and you can have a real conversation that could lead to personal growth and exploration. So while the quantity was tempting and fun on a certain level, ultimately we've circled back to those earliest programs and saying this is what we want to be doing, and not as a means to an end, but as an end to an end, and that's what we're excited about today.
That's wonderful. I want to ask you another aspect about outreach. I call it the velvet rope Kiruv. Basically meaning of being exclusive, making exclusive events when doing Jewish educational outreach. And I want to quote a New York Mag article that writes how the new Soho hopes to bring Orthodox Judaism to the velvet rope set. We call it a boutique synagogue. You might have to RSVP. There might be a roped line. It will totally be a scene, but it's all kosher. Explained Dovi Scheiner. Is it okay for Jewish homes of worship and gatherings be like an exclusive nightclub, almost like with a bouncer? I once had a person call up. I got a cold call to a shul where I serve as an assistant rabbi. He said, listen, I work for a guy in hedge funds, and he asked me, he just moved into New York, he asked me to find the most exclusive synagogue in the city. So how exclusive is your synagogue? I said, listen, our bouncer is not so strong these days, so he doesn't bounce too many people out, but there are quite a lot of impressive people. So my question is, the famous Gemara, in Brachas, about when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became the Nasi of Klal Yisrael, he took over Yavna from Rabbi Gamliel when he was 18 years old, and that same day he invited everyone to come and study Torah, and either 400 or 700 new benches were added in. People complain, it should be completely open, it should be open for everyone to attend, but it's like a catch-22. If you make an event for everyone, no one wants to come. You make it exclusive, people complain that they can't get in. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, look, it's a tremendous question. Look, first to address the New York Magazine quote, I've grown up, and there was a period where I really, really thought I was smart, and thank God that ship has sailed. And I really celebrate the fact that I'm, just a schmagegi who has certain gifts that I'm good at, most things I'm not. And I've tried to give what I can to this space because I'm passionate, about promoting Jewish life. Look, it's very, very tricky. I would definitely never...
By the way, my question to you, the Lubavitch Young Professionals Initiative, when did that start? That's a new initiative, no?
It's newer the last few years, yeah.
Just the last few years. So again, I feel like both Litvish and Hasidic outreach organizations very much follow many of the norms, so to say, that you have established and you have promoted.
Yeah, so we have to update the file. Look, here's what I believe. I'm not a fan of exclusivity, and definitely not obnoxious exclusivity in the sense of, what a bouncer would represent, and we actually never had that, so I don't even know where that dream came from. But what I do believe, here's what I do believe. I believe that there is a group that is hard to reach, and that very often we reach the same group over and over again. And one of my passions has been trying to reach people who are not meaningfully engaged. Now, what I found that to mean is not that they don't want to be connected, but for whatever reason they haven't found the right community, they haven't found the right experience. So I do like to sort of try to fish around and identify those people and bring them to the table in a focused way. And I do think that sometimes rabbis worry about competing rabbis. What I found is that everyone has their charisma, and everyone's going to attract their group, and that's natural, and it's sort of self-selecting, and that's not a bad thing. I would say, obnoxious, in-your-face exclusivity, marketing with terms like exclusive, is definitely not appropriate in my perspective.
But then someone is going to tell you, if you get 10 leaders, you get 100 followers. If you target the 100 followers, you're lucky if 3 people show up.
Look, so I think you have to know your audience. I do believe that part of our mission with Soho Synagogue and now with Soho Supper Club is to sort of be a model.
By the way, why did you choose supper?
Sorry?
What does the word supper mean? The Last Supper, the First Supper? What's the meaning of supper?
So the idea is basically to create a Friday night dinner on a weeknight. So the logistics of the dinner is that we're hosting kosher food with mashkichim in homes that maybe started the day not kosher. There's a lot of logistics to pull that off. So weeknights are more effective for us. But we're basically creating an intimate, spiritual, kosher dinner. We're celebrating Achnasas Archim. We're celebrating Torah. We're celebrating, making a bracha before and after a meal. So that's where we've come to in terms of our new product. And, Soho Synagogue was able to reach Jews, even though it had the word synagogue that wouldn't typically go to synagogue. And here you have a brand that it's not obvious what it is until you show up, and then it's really a powerful experience. So that's what we're doing now.
It's very interesting. Let me ask you a question. There's a lot of debate, discussion around, it's not just in the world of Jewish outreach, but in general, are you for online platforms or for brick and mortar style? Which means the future of Jewish outreach, is it with a Rav sitting in Yerushalayim with a website and a chat group with 50,000 people, or it's old school brick and mortar shuls, with minyanim, with communities, with some sort of membership and so on. And obviously, the brick and mortar shul will have a website, and the website will make events in places. But how do you see that? Could you expand a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have struggled with this. We did a little bit of back and forth, and here's what I'll say. So,
one second. And by the way, it's very appropriate this week's, these week's parshios. We're learning about the building of the Mishkan. What's a Mikdash Me'at, a Meir Mikdash, the concept of having a home of worship, and a lot of the Jewish outreach was not focused around Jewish worship. Many Jewish organizations. It's in office spaces, in lofts, and galleries. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so one of the core innovations that we drove at the beginning of our journey was we got to Lower Manhattan, and we didn't have real estate, and we couldn't afford real estate, but we wanted to gather. And we realized pretty quickly that there's a subset of people who have incredibly beautiful homes, and that if you ask them politely, and the way that we would do it is we would cover all the expenses. So if you're hosting us, it doesn't mean you're picking up the bill, and you leave the place clean. They're happy to open their doors for a few hours. And we noticed that for the participants entering into a non-institutional space, not into a shul, not into a federation building, was exponentially more appealing. So it was a real win-win, and we really doubled down on that. And it's sort of like, free high-end Airbnb. I'm a big believer in that. I think the difference between our first project and our second one, the first was called Soho Synagogue, and we were trying to innovate within the context of the synagogue structure. It wasn't by any stretch.
Could I read a short paragraph from an article in NewYorkCurbs.com? Soho Synagogue, a yoga-friendly, design-savvy congregation. Menorah arms or MTA subway map. Ambiguous thanks to a new-old mix of Orthodox Judaism designed by Studio Drawer for a 1,600-square-foot storefront synagogue in Soho. A suspended steel staircase and furniture made through parametric modeling mingle with exposed pipes, raw brick walls, and so hip it hurts single Edison bulbs. And as co-design points out, it looks a lot like a nightclub, which may explain why the circular bookcases house prayer books alongside wine glasses. So I think this is a little intro into the design. If you're just reading the Mishkan, this is a 2019 Mishkan. Someone asked me, which shuls are competing which other shuls, and I said, especially in Manhattan,
Shuls are not competing with each other. They're competing with Broadway shows, with museums, with galleries. That's the competition, and the biggest competition is for people's time. People will say, "I'll give you anything, but just let me go." Or how much do I need to pay in order not having to show up? So it's very interesting what you're saying. If I would ask you to rank the effort, the global Jewish effort in terms of outreach, an honest ranking of how much effort are we doing? If you'd have to rank it from 1 to 10.
Yeah, so I this is something I'm very passionate about, and I'm passionate about it because I think I have a unique lens. I come from Chabad. My organization doesn't operate in the context of Chabad. I have a lot of relationships. I would say that I am absolutely amazed
By the way, in which cities do you operate right now? Can you tell us a little bit more?
So we're currently hosting dinners in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, and in May we're going to launch in Paris, and this year we hope to launch in London and Tel Aviv. So we're
and you get to travel between all of those cities.
I do. Hopefully we'll be able to build teams, so I don't have to be there all the time. But for now, I'm the event planner. But
by the way, when you learn for smicha, no one teaches you how to plan an event. It's they don't teach you how to negotiate with the caterer, with the musicians. With the lighting person.
One of my favorite stories, in the way I actually pivoted ultimately career from rabbi to event planner. That's mostly what I do today. And someone gave us a beautiful loft, and we showed up.
President Obama started as a community organizer. That's what it's called, a community organizer. Yeah.
So somebody gave us a beautiful. No, for sure. Someone gave us a beautiful loft, and we did what we knew. My wife and I, we went to the shawarma place in Flatbush, and we got a couple of tins full of, shawarma, and we showed up and we put it on the table. And a woman who at the time we were deeply insulted, but ultimately we realized she did us a great kindness. She was an event planner, and she called us over, and she said, "Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea, why did you just put tinfoil in this beautiful house?" And that was the beginning of us opening up our eyes. And this is, just to back up one of the things you made. I think one of the things we stand for and is extremely important is there needs to be a greater effort to understand who you're competing against. And when you're competing against five-star restaurants and Broadway shows, while the focus should be the content, you cannot compromise on the aesthetic and the thoughtfulness of the experience and really respecting people's times. And we need to outdo experientially, and obviously we'll outdo spiritually the competition, and that's possible. And so that's one great challenge. But I look around the Jewish world, and I'm amazed because, look, I was a little kid in Borough Park, and I would have arguments on the corner. This was early in the Rebbe's, in the Rebbe's outreach vision, and people would say, "What do you mean? You're going to go to some, random community, and the shliach is going to assimilate into the community?" And I would be like, "No, that's not going to happen." We've gotten to a point, where everybody, it seems to me, not everybody, but there is an incredibly broad spectrum, including, the non-Orthodox. There's incredible innovation. There's incredible financial investment. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind when you hear, I look at Chabad House, the term Chabad House, and then I look at Moshe House, and I was like, oh, there's the House of Chabad House. And then I look at Beis Hillel, and I'm like, oh, there's the base of Beis Chabad. So I obviously see this all as an outgrowth of the Rebbe's vision, which he passionately expressed, which ultimately, I think today, it is in the consciousness of the entire Jewish world that if you know Aleph, if you have the gift of Jewish inspiration, you have to share that gift. Now, different people are doing it in different ways, some more effectively, some less effectively, and even in my own journey, I would say I had to learn as I went, and hopefully I'm getting better and evolving, and hopefully we can each learn from each other the strengths of our successes and collaborate and build it. But to me, there's no question that there's not a lot of people left on the bench, that people are getting off the bench, that people are rolling up their sleeves. That to me is extremely exciting, the diversity of offerings, and I think it's a foretaste of Mashiach in the sense of we're all trying to bring our brothers and sisters into the Jewish conversation, and I think that's laudable and deeply exciting.
Excellent. Listen, you got away with not giving me a number
from 1 to 10, but it's okay.
That's way up there.
The other interviewees didn't answer that question either. But you're reminding me. When I first came to Parky Synagogue, and I serve here as an assistant rabbi, and I started working at some young people's program. And, I was looking for a comedian for a Purim event or something. By the way, I'm still looking for a comedian who's clean, who says only clean jokes. I haven't found him. If you hear of someone, let me know. It's very difficult. Listen, there's some great comedians, and some do special shul routines. You got to speak to them in advance about it. And then, one of the young guys who works in finance came over to me and said, Rabbi Goldschmidt, I love it that you're trying to do these events, and but let me tell you honestly, if I want to hear a comedian, don't bring me some B-class comedian. I'll go hear Jerry Seinfeld. I'm gonna get myself a great comedian. I want to learn Torah. I never learned the Talmud, and then it dawned on me. I'm like, wow, I could actually do what I learned how to do, and that actually interests people. I feel like we have to balance ourselves, not to forget the Iker, the Torah, and Torah is the best Scheiner. It's
absolutely.
And my mother told me something very powerful. Before I became a rabbi, she said, Benji, don't forget, people want to be inspired. People want to be inspired. And we shouldn't underestimate that. And again, I want to salute you for all the Yidden you have impacted, all the people who you've helped find the Jewish match, you and Esty, and wish you much success in all your endeavors in the future.
Thank you. Pleasure talking. Hatzlacha.
Dov, all the best. Kol Tov, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.